Oh, there we go. How's everybody doing today? If you could do me a favor, let me get this share thing out so you guys can see me better. There we go. Okay, if you could do me a favor and let me know that you can hear me and where you're listening from, that would be great. Okay, awesome. Now I'm ready to go with my custom background. Let's see if that works. Oops, wrong way. That works better. Okay. So, all right, awesome. So anyways, let's get started. Today we're going to answer questions. Just give me one more second here. There we are. Okay, great. We got a whole bunch of questions. If you are watching me on if you're watching me on YouTube, you can put your questions in the chat box on YouTube. And if you're watching me on Zoom, you can put your answers there. Looks like we got people all over the world today listening in. So anyways, put your questions in and let's get started. So let's take a look at our questions. Okay. Hello, sir. Discovered your channel recently and I had a question to ask. Scenario sounds very theoretical, but please hang on. Okay, I'll hang on. Okay, here we go. Now here it goes. Assuming I had begun building a product starting in April, launched it in August, and the product generates $1 million in revenue all the way to a stable $1 million ARR in 2026. The budget, not sure what that is, $0 before launch. Wow, it's a little long questions. How attractive would that be for future investors to bet on? Okay. And someone turning zero into a million with minimal resources. Okay, so here's the deal. Look, it's great that you're able to do this. Fantastic. And it can be a fantastic business. However, this does not necessarily mean it's an investable business. What's important from an investor perspective is what's the potential of the business? What's it going to be worth? That's what investors care about, right? Is they care about what your business is going to be worth. So think of it that way, when you're thinking about your business, because that's what's super important to people is that piece. I want to know what's your business going to be worth long run. So that's what determines things. The good news is, let's say you have a business that has the potential to be worth billions, okay, which means it's an extremely investable business. And you started off in your first year and you got $1 million a year in revenue, which is no small feat, by the way. It's hard to do this. I know it's from personal experience, a lot harder than we think. So now suddenly you've got credibility because now you have traction. So that's the big benefit of what you're doing is now you have traction and that can help you. But it does not guarantee you're going to raise money. They're two separate things. Okay. The next question we have. Okay. Is making a trailer a good idea for a pitch? And I think you mean a video trailer. And after the trailer, should I introduce myself and the team? Well, are you talking about in an investor meeting, making a trailer? Might not work so well. Just my guess. You have to get the thing about doing videos and things like that. You have to get right on it. You don't have time to waste. We have to get right to the point instantly. We're talking to investors. And if we're doing videos or video trailers, it's kind of the same thing because people's time spans and attention spans are short. So we don't have hours, we don't have minutes, we have seconds. Literally maybe 7 or 10 seconds to start making an impression with people, or they'll move on to whatever's next on their list. So you have to make a dent really quickly if you're going to do this. And if you're going to do a trailer, you have to introduce what you're doing instantly. It's interesting in my group, Zero to Pitch, the free group. I have two groups, a free group and a paid group, and you can see the QR code, I believe, for the paid group behind me. But for the free group, somebody had put in there, which I thought was really cool, an AI generated video of what their business was about. And he asked for comments, and I put some comments in saying, hey, you got there too slow. And it was well done. It was very professionally done. Then he came back, did it again, and in 7 seconds, he had explained what they were doing and where they were going. That's much better. So you have to really think of these short time spans when we're doing things like this. Okay, let's go to our next question. You have questions for me, and you're watching on Zoom, which means you're part of my free group Zero to Pitch. You can put your questions in the chat box. Please, you can do that. Of course, let me see if we have something in the QA. Of course, we have it in the Q&A, but that's okay. We'll do that anyways. So for the Q&A, how do I scale down my pitch to not overwhelm? Do I tell everything? Wow, it's just such a broad question. This is part of this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. If you start looking in because you're a member of Zero to Pitch, if you go into the course section, the classroom section of Zero to Pitch, you'll see there's a free course in there, Zero to Pitch Lite. And if you go over the intro video that I did, that's kind of going to go over this. It's kind of a less is more thing, but it's so broad that I can't answer that in 2 minutes. I can't answer that in an hour. Quite honestly, because I have to kind of look at what you're doing to kind of have a feel for what's working and what isn't working, and why. People tend to go into way too much detail, is what I would tell you, in pitches, and you have to kind of think about, you maybe have 1 minute to 2 minutes per slide to explain what's going on. So you want to get, again, I can't snap today. There we go. Anyways, you want to get right on it so that you get to it. You're not kind of bouncing around all over the place when you're answering a question. You're just right on the answer, getting right to the point. And then you have to manage and modulate the detail to your audience. So that's at a super high level. That's how you do it. But go into that course. If you kind of like what you're seeing, then hop over to the paid group. Spend $125 a month to learn how to do it the right way, so you can really get better quickly. By the way, if you're interested in the paid group, price is going up on July 1st. So if you get in now, you lock in this $125 a month rate for life. The rate is going up to $150 a month on July 1st. So this is a great time to hop in there and do it. So I hope that answers your question. Okay. Next question that we have, let me see. Hi, Brett. I'm the founder of a personalized education business. Since our learning model is so unique, people often struggle to quickly get it. This is a problem. I will tell you that without even answering the rest of the question. How can we clarify our offer? Something simple, repeatable, and scalable without diluting what makes us special. Okay, this is what you need to figure out. So you're right, in terms of what you're recognizing is, because if people don't get it instantly, you're not communicating it properly. That's what I would tell you. So this takes work. It takes a little bit of trial and error. It takes asking questions. It takes working really hard to whittle this down to, what do you do? Why are you significantly better than everybody else? You need to be asking yourself the tough questions. I'm going to have a video coming out on this subject in a few weeks. But let me give you a 3-question thing you can ask, which is really like, what's different about you, which might help you. You have to kind of identify, number 1, what is really different about you? Number 2, why is it important to your customers? By the way, this is what investors care about too, because if it's not important to your customers, who cares? And then number 3, is why is it going to be difficult to replicate? In other words, if I can just come along and do the same thing as you instantly, then the value of what you have isn't that great. However, if what you're doing is significantly better and there's some huge advantage that you have, okay, great. Now we're in business. Now we're ready to rock. So tell us that, and explain it so that we can kind of understand it. And then you kind of want to just at the beginning of your pitch, what's your problem? What's your solution? You have to kind of explain this, and you have to tell us, here's the key problem. Here's the key solution. You want to think about pain, the pain your customers are in without your solution and the relief they get with your solution. All right, let's go to our next question. I hope that helps. Okay, let's see. Today, I've delivered a pitch in front of 10 angels from a big syndicate here in Italy. Good for you. All great until they ask me, what's the valuation? The old valuation question. Okay, I say I'll let the market decide. You have seen more deals than I did. Okay, good for you. Okay. One of them gives me feedback after the meeting saying I look like a rookie founder for not seeing a valuation. They're idiots. I guess Italian angels work differently the opposite way. Haha. Does this tip of not mentioning evaluation work for angels too, or just VCs? Okay, look, you have to understand your audience. That's what I would tell you. I think that's super important with these things. And if you're talking to a group and it's 10 people, right, and they're asking you the question, ideally, yes, the market does determine the value. However, when you're in front of a group like this, they want to make sure that you're sane, that you're being reasonable. So for example, let's say we're just starting out. Let's say we're raising, I'm just going to pick a number. Let's say we're raising $100,000. And you think that the valuation of your company after you get the $100,000 should be $10 million, which means they get 1% of the company. If you go in and you tell people that, they're out because you're not thinking logically. However, if you were to say, well, I think it's going to be somewhere probably, I would typically give a range. I wouldn't give a specific number because this isn't Shark Tank, or I forget the European version of Shark Tank that they had. I think it's called Dragon's Den or something like that. Anyways, it's not that. It's if they're gonna ask you that question, I would typically give a range. I might say, look, probably the valuation is going to be, because typically you'd give up around 10 or 15% of the company. So give a range of 10 to 15%, whatever that is. This thing is like around, say it's going to be around 750,000 to about $1 million, somewhere in that range, I would expect, based on what we're seeing previous other deals like ours going for. And everybody's going to look at you and go, okay, that's fine. That's probably how I would have answered the question. So I appreciate you bringing that up, because yes, I do recommend that, but you have to understand there's the audience that you're talking to. If I'm talking one-on-one to an investor, I would absolutely say market. If I'm talking to an investment fund and I'm in front of 8 or 9 people, I would say market, because they're all part of the same fund. But if I'm talking to a group of angels, each one of them is an individual possible investor, and they're asking me the question, I might answer it as I said, the way I described. I might say, look, the market's going to determine the value, but the range that we're expecting is between here and here. And then you're done. And if they still have problems, they're idiots. And the person telling you that you're a rookie, I don't believe that at all. So don't worry about it too much. Okay, let's see what our next question is. I got a term sheet for a standard check of $40,000 for 4%. Really? Okay. $40,000 for 4% in an AI agent dev tools. Is it a bad start? No, not at all. They give you $40,000 for 4%. I'm saying that for $100,000 for 10% is a pretty good deal. So you're right on track. It's not so bad. Because if you parse that out, right, you're essentially, it's every $10,000 for 1%. If you multiply that by 10, that's $100,000 for 10%. So it sounds like a pretty good deal. I can't negotiate because that VC has a standard check. Also, I want to join Zero to Pitch Gold, but I missed the 30-minute session. Can I rebook? Yeah, you can go ahead and rebook. Just go ahead and do that. And you should be able to do that. If you want to join Zero to Pitch Gold, by the way, the QR code that is on my left right here, you can just scan that and join, and you're in. You don't have to talk to me before joining. So you can hop right in there right now, and you can become a member today if you want. So anyways, hope that answers your question. Okay, questions for me, you can put them in the chat box on Zoom or YouTube. Does not matter which one it is. Either one will work. Just pop it on in there and we're good to go. And I'll be happy to answer your questions. So let's go to our next question. What's the average dilution nowadays in the US in fintech for pre-seed? I plan to dilute 17 to 20% with average revenue and average traction. I think I need more detail to be able to give you an answer. I need to know how much you're raising. And it will vary from business to business, market to market, company to company. So it's a hard one to just give you just a flat out answer for. I would tell you. And I really want to know how much you're raising because that's really going to determine a lot. Is this the first? Sounds like it's your first round of funding. So like as I described to the previous person, if you're raising like $100,000, something like that, it's going to be around 10%. Somewhere around there would be a good guess. And that'll work. I would say, $100,000 for 10%, something like that. If you're raising more, the amount of dilution you're going to give up is going to be more. I don't know what the 17 to 20% really works out to. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work. So anyways, let's go to our next question. Good one. Okay. In office hours, this is for Zero to Pitch Gold, my paid group. Will I be able to get my deck reviewed by you? Yes. And if I raise, will I be able to get founder advice for running my startup and forming my founding team? Yes. That's as simple as it gets, of course. Yes. Look, the group is formulated in a way where if you are trying to raise money, it is a great group for raising money because we review pitch decks, pitches all the time in there. We also give advice about founders, running your business, typical issues that you run into with your startup. All of it's fair game. Anything that you have questions for, I'm happy to answer, is what I would tell you. So yeah, you can get all these questions answered in Zero to Pitch Gold. And I believe the QR code is on my left, right over right there where my finger is pointing. Just scan that and you're in. And as I said, it is $125 a month. Great bargain. The bargain of bargains right now, $125 a month for what you get, because you get access to me every business day for office hours, about an hour a day. I have office hours about an hour a day. I'll have office hours about an hour and a half from now. So office hours, hour a day, get that. You get access to classes in there, and everybody in the group is going through pretty much the same challenges and struggles that you're going through. And one of the things that I think is really important to understand, and one of the things I really appreciate about the group, is that there's a lot of camaraderie that you get from working with other people that are doing the same things and have the same challenges as you. It's nice not to be so alone, which is one of the challenges of being a CEO. So I hope that helps. Okay, awesome. If you have questions for me, put them in the chat box on Zoom or YouTube, and I will be happy to answer them for you. Okay, let's do that. Okay, so let me check for more questions in my handy dandy question list. That's not what I want. Okay. All right, so, okay, our next question. Hi, Brett. Well, hello to you too. If you have a question for me, you can put it in the chat box and I'll be happy to answer it for you. I'm a little bit blown away. Usually when I do these AMAs, we go for about an hour or so, and right now we're about half an hour in, and I don't see any more questions, which may mean we're signing off pretty quickly. So if you've got questions for me, now's the time. Saved at the last second. Okay, by my Zoom audience, which gets the priority. So look on YouTube. If you've got questions for me, please just pop them in there and I'll be happy to answer them for you. So let's see what the next question is. Can you talk about your co-founder red flags and co-founder green flags? Oh, this is really good. This is a really good question. There's a lot of layers to this one. As an investor, what types of dynamic stories give you a good feeling versus a bad feeling? Okay. Okay, so let's talk about the green flags and red flags. So, what are we looking for in the people that we're working with, regardless of where they come from? Integrity. People don't have integrity. I don't care how smart they are. I don't care how good they are. I don't care how much experience they have. You can't work with them. Every time in my career, I've ignored red flags around integrity. It fails. Second thing we're looking for with our co-founders, this is, by the way, in no particular order. Second thing, I want people that are fanatical about our mission. Whatever your mission is, you want people that are true believers. The reason why you want people that are true believers is because it is hard, really hard, to build a startup. There are many death-defying times we're going to have where literally our business is going to be minutes away from failing. There's going to be all sorts of stuff and crap that you're going to go through. And if you don't have true believers, it's not going to work. So you need the true believer. You need the people that are all in, to make this go. So look for those people. They're going to be the people that are going to save the day for you. So really look for those people as part of what we're looking for. So we've got integrity, we've got fanaticism. The third one is what I'll call smarts. And when I'm saying smarts is I want people that are smarter than me in their respective disciplines. So I'm an engineer, but I'm not the guru engineer. That's not where I live. My skills are much more around strategy, marketing, business development, things like that, and general management. So if I'm starting a company and I'm starting a technology company, for example, I want somebody who's a technologist to work with me. And I want the technologists to be better at what they do than I am at what I do. You want your standards to be unbelievably high when you're starting out. So look for these three things, right? Integrity, fanaticism, smarts. And then the third one, which kind of goes with one of them as well, is I want people that are going to really work hard too. Actually, let me take that back. The fourth one, excuse me, is I want people that fit my company culture. And by company culture, I mean that they have to have similar values to you. It doesn't mean they have to be exactly the same values as you, but you want the values to be similar. And if we can find these four things, and by the way, I think each one of these things is a knockout. In other words, if they don't have any one of these four things, they're off your list. But if they have them, then they're on your list. So this to me is this is what I'm looking for. People like that. If they don't have integrity, can't work with them. If they're not fanatical, they're going to fail and they're going to flame out. If they're not smart, they're not going to last very long. And if they don't fit your culture and your values, and by the way, the culture is determined by the people you work with. So you have to really think about the idea is everybody that you add to the company helpfully improves the culture. This is what would be a great founding team. And then if I'm going to put the cherry on top of my little sandwich that I'm building here, the cherry on top is that they have worked together before. The more the people have worked together before reduces the risk from an investor standpoint. So think about that as the other piece of your puzzle here is from an investor standpoint, what am I looking for? I'm looking for risk reduction. So if I have a team that is at least some of the founders have worked together before, that's great because most founder relationships fail within a year, at least 50% of them. So the more that they work together, the more chances there are of success. So I hope that helps. All right, let's see. Can you be specific about what integrity looks like or doesn't? Okay, do they tell the truth? do they mislead potential intentionally or not? If they mislead you and they don't tell the truth, they don't have integrity. That's the basics of integrity. And if you're worried about can you trust the person, they're not the right person for you. I can't get any more specific than this. I will tell you, it wasn't a founder, but I had this one person I hired who almost brought our whole company down because he had no integrity. I hired him. I knew something was off about the guy, but the board loved him. He looked like he had the right background, came highly recommended. Something was off, and I just ignored it. And what was off was he didn't have integrity. He lied on his resume, his CV, didn't tell the truth. It came out, and he wasn't doing a good job, and he was causing problems. He was one of these guys who was a great, hallway talker. Essentially, would bring people in the hallway, be talking to them about this, that, and the other thing, causing disruptions, causing problems. Had to go. That's a lack of integrity, is when people are misleading and lying to you. And when they don't tell you the truth on a resume, this is why you always check references. That's when you have huge problems. So I hope that helps. All right, let's go to our next question. Okay, what do small VC firms do when an ask is larger than they can normally handle? They pass. If my check writing size, let's say is $100,000, and you're saying, hey, I need $1 million. Well, unless I can be part of the syndicate to go raise the $1 million, I'm not going to up my check size. So this is you're bringing up something which is really interesting because this is part of the challenge that you have. You have to find investors that can write the size of check that you want. So in my case, when we were raising our initial funding, we were trying to raise $11 million, which turned into 12. I needed people that could write that size of check. And if, it wouldn't do me any good to go to somebody whose minimum check size was 25 million because we weren't going to be big enough to move the needle on their fund. In other words, have a result, even if we knocked it out of the park, that was going to just be good for them. It just wasn't going to be worth their time. I needed people that were right size for me, and you do too. So if you got to know the check sizes. This is actually in today's world reasonably easy to find because you can go on a tool like Crunchbase. You can see what people are doing. Sometimes on their websites that will show you, we write check sizes of this size. That's what you're trying to figure out. I hope that helps. Okay, let's go to our next question. When you're advising founders who are great at communicating, what do you usually see as the biggest blind spot when they are pitching VCs? Well, if you're good at communicating, you're kind of telling me I'm being a little snarky here, but as I'm listening to it, it's like, well, then you're such a great communicator. Then what are the problems? What comes to mind is hubris, quite frankly, is that you're missing your blind spots. And I don't know what your blind spots are, but good communication doesn't just mean you're a good talker. It also means you're a good listener. You also can read the room well, and you know your strengths and weaknesses. One of the things that I encourage people to do is create a slide, whether you show it to investors or not, that says why our company will fail. Now, it seems like an oxymoron. Why in the hell would we want to do this? But there's a really good reason to do this, because typically investors know that every deal is not perfect. There are always reasons why a company will fail. And they, when they're talking to their partners, if we're talking about venture capitalists, they will typically review these things and say, well, the company's going to fail because of X, Y, Z, and W. That's why they will fail if they fail. So you want to identify X, Y, Z, and W, whatever those things are. And you want to keep making these things better. And if you have guts, you can tell investors, these are the reasons why we're going to fail if we fail, or because of this, and that. Why? Because they're going to do the same work. And they're either going to ask you questions about it, or they won't ask you questions. If they don't, it doesn't mean they're not concerned about it. So sometimes you can ask investors, what are you concerned about? What are your concerns? You can do it that way. Or you can preempt and say, here's what we're concerned. Here's what we believe the issues are, and here's what we're doing about them. And make the issues real. And only have 3 of them, by the way, because of what I call the rule of 3. So I hope that helps. Okay, next question. Is it better to fire now and deal with the work increasing for other developers if one is already massively slowing down the process? Yes. I guess it depends on the potential losses each ends. Okay, I don't know about that last piece, but yeah, look, if you have somebody who's not performing, it's always better to get rid of them. You have to learn how to fire people as a CEO. As painful as it is, and you should feel the pain every single time you fire somebody because it's your fault. You're the reason you hired them. But if a developer is not cutting it, then it's better to get rid of the developer. All the other developers on your team are going to inevitably say to you this: what took you so long? They'll know. Everybody knows. And if somebody's slowing down the team, yeah, they'll stick with it. But eventually, if too many people are slowing down the team, they'll move on to another company because you don't know how to manage. So it's painful, but you got to do it. Okay. I'm encountering I think this is the follow-on to this. Yeah, I'll do it tomorrow guy. While I almost live by almost the hour. Okay, don't know what to say about that. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. I reduced my ask to a firm I'm in due diligence with. Okay, I see. Okay, due diligence with to match their normal check size, even though it's not ideal. That's, I think, pretty smart, actually, to do that. And I think you have to be flexible because, and by the way, this is something I did too. So I said earlier, if you were listening, that I was raising $11 million. We had one investor who could write like a $3.5 million check. We had another investor already lined up for $5.5 million. So what do? I wanted to close the round. I wanted to get going. So with the $3.5 million investor, we just developed a $9 million plan. Slow down a little bit, slow your hiring down, make the money last longer, do a little bit less. That's a really smart thing to do. So good for you for doing that. I think that's exactly the right thing to do. Because you have to be flexible. If you're trying to raise $1 million and all you can do is 800, well, then you go to your $800,000 plan. It isn't so black and white. So good for you for doing that. That's exactly right. Okay, somebody else is saying, I was told I wasn't asking for enough money. $500,000 wasn't interesting. They wanted me to ask for 2 million or up because probably that's the check size that they write. So you have to understand your audience. So if the audience is saying to you, hey, we write check sizes of $2 million, then you got to have a $2 million plan. So before you meet with investors, do your research. Not every investor is created the same. Maybe that's another really important point, since we're getting all these questions about raising money right now. Not every investor is created the same. So be aware of that. Be cognizant of that investors will ask for different things. You have to understand that. So they're early stage investors, they're mid-stage investors, they're late-stage investors, they're seed investors, they're investors that only invest in healthcare, they're investors that only invest in fintech, they're investors that only invest in hardware or software or whatever the disciplines are. And they're investors that only invest geographically too. We have to understand all the connection, the intersection of all these points to figure out who's right for us. Not every investor out there is ideal for you. It is really important to understand that. So even if somehow or other you get a meeting like it sounds like you did, and you walk in and say, well, we're raising 500,000, and the investors, well, that's not good enough. We need 2 million. That's kind of what you're hearing. So be cognizant of what you're hearing, because and do your research beforehand and do your work beforehand, because that'll really help you. All right. I hope that helps. Maybe I was misinterpreting the question. I don't think so, though, based on what you're telling me. So, deep sigh. So what's the next question that we have? If we can put it in the chat box on YouTube or Zoom, that would be great. You can put your questions on YouTube or Zoom, and I'll be happy to answer them. I've got time for a few more questions if there are any. If they're not, then that's cool too. But if you have any more questions for me, just pop them into Zoom or YouTube. And again, just for people that are tuning in late here, if you're interested in taking it up to the next level, you like what you're hearing here, you like the content on my channel, you can join my free group. If you haven't already, Zero to Pitch, you can learn a lot from there. But if you really want to work with me and you want to be able to communicate with me, not in a webinar format where you're typing in questions, but in a meeting format where you actually get to talk to me, this is the perfect time to join my paid group, Zero to Pitch Gold. QR code is on my left shoulder. All you need to do is just scan it, fill in your information you're in, costs all of $125 a month. You can cancel anytime you want. It's a great time to join because the price is going up to $150 a month. But if you join now, before the end of June 2025, you get in at this $125 a month for life. It's a great bargain. It's like $25,000 worth of value for all of $125 a month. Can't beat it. Okay, this is another really good question. How are comps used to calculate valuation? Well, what comps tell you is kind of like in a different market, what are different deals going for? So it's useful. But the other thing that's really important to understand is that if you're looking for leverage and you're looking for the best price on your deal, the way that you get that is by having competition on the deal. So what do I mean by competition? You have multiple investors vying to invest in your startup at the exact same time. If you do not have that, and that, by the way, is really hard to do because it's hard enough to get one term sheet, let alone multiple term sheets at the same time. But if you don't have that, then it's going to be whatever the standard terms are that the investor is going to want to do. And typically, look, the investors, I'm going to caveat what I'm going to say here. Yes, there are investors out there that want to screw you and want it all to be about them. But most investors understand that there needs to be a balance between what they need and what you need to make the company successful. Most investors are like that, I would tell you. There is a group of them. I know who they are, and I've dealt with them, that are going to always be trying to extract maximum amounts of pain from you, no matter what it is. So try and stay away from those people. Ask for references from investors too. Ask what it's like to work with investors. But typically the percentages are going to be pretty similar round by round, and typically for the first round, it's going to be, if you're raising $100,000 or so, it's talking about maybe you're going to give away 10% of your company, something like that. And then the subsequent rounds are going to be, depending upon, again, it's going to vary, but could be anywhere from 20 to 25%. And then when you get to really big fundraising rounds, it goes back down again. To maybe you're giving up 10%. Again, but it depends so much on what's going on with your business, so much on where you're at, that it's hard to just give standardized answers to these questions. But I hope that helps. Okay, let's go to the let's go to our next question. What's the best way to reach out if I've got a few questions besides the lives OFCs? Okay. Like, what platform are you on the most? Well, the platform that I'm on the most, you have my free site, Zero to Pitch. You can find a link to it in my YouTube channel, and you can join that. That's a way to be able to communicate with me at some level. There's also, you can put questions in the community section of that, and sometimes I'll answer them. They might be answered by the group. If you're looking for more contact with me and you want to work with me, then you can join Zero to Pitch Gold. It costs all of $125 a month. It's nothing. You can quit anytime you want. If you want to talk to me, you want to ask questions of me, that's the perfect way to do it. I have office hours every business day in there for about an hour or so every day. So anyways, that's what I would do. QR code is on my left shoulder. All you have to do is just scan it, put in your information, and you're in. All right, do we have any more questions today? Questions. If you have questions for me, you can put them in the chat box on Zoom or YouTube, and I'll be happy to answer them for you. I am an early stage pre-revenue founder building a hard tech chip design tools company. Okay, that sounds really hard to do. I have a proof of concept, a technical strategy, and a business plan. How do I go about raising pre-seed money? Well, you got to find investors that are excited by what you're doing, and you have to reduce the risk. So we're thinking about something like building chip design tools, right? Which I don't know whether you're trying to compete with like a Cadence or somebody like that, or what exactly you're doing. But if you're trying to do that, and it's going to take a lot of money to get from point A to point Z, then you have to think about, well, what are the things I can do to reduce the risk every step of the way? Because that's what investors are looking at. So if you kind of break up your development process into A, B, C, D, whatever it is that you're going to do, and are thinking about, well, I can kind of show kind of like what you're describing. I don't know what your proof of concept is, but if you're showing like proof, I've already got a proof of concept, okay, and I can show that to investors that might be able to raise a small amount of money with that. Then it's like, well, what can I do to get to a first article and prove out the product works with customers and start to get customers buying? That might be a next logical step, and so forth and so on. The more you can break it down and the more you can reduce the risk for investors, both in terms of the team, the product, the market, all these various things, that's what's going to help you raise money. And at the same time, it has to be a big idea. It has to be something where there's a significant return for investors. So what's a significant return? For early stage investors like what you're describing, that's like 30x their money. For angels, it's 30x their money. For super early stage VCs, it might be 30x their money. Then it gets to like 10x or 30x their money. So you got to think about, it's got to be worthwhile for the other guy too. It can't just be, I've got a great idea. You have to think about the return being something that's going to be significant for investors. What's the context for questions? Anything? Yeah, I'll answer any question, pretty much. Okay, next question. Oh, okay. He's describing what it is. AI agents, which would reside on top of Cadence / Synopsys tools. Okay. All right. So maybe there's utility and value in that. You've got to kind of be able to show how your agent's going to work. Again, answer these three questions. I went over this earlier today. Here are the three key questions in terms of what's going to make you different from everybody else. I've already helped you, I guess. But let me give you more. Number one, what makes your product, your AI agents different from everybody else? As everybody's doing AI agents, what's different about yours? Why is it important to your customers? If it's not important to your customers, look, you can have the greatest innovation in the world, nobody cares. Number three, why is it going to be difficult for competitors to duplicate what you're doing? Those are three critical questions that you have to be able to answer about your innovation. And then you have to be able to kind of say, here's the big problem we're solving, here's how we solve it, all these other things that we're doing. But that's what you want to do. All right. Any other questions? I got time for maybe one more question, depending upon what it is. If you got a question for me, put it in the chat box or the chat box on Zoom, which means you're part of my free group, Zero to Pitch. Or you can put it in the chat box on YouTube, and I'll be happy to answer it in either place. Just want to say thank you. You're quite welcome. Glad to be able to help. Very cool. Okay, I'll give you guys just a little bit more time. Later, I can't get it short enough to satisfy YouTube. Okay, looks like unless we're saved at the last second here, looks like we have no more questions today, which is just fine. So look, probably won't do another one of these until July, I'm imagining, at some point. So have a happy 4th of July to all the people watching in the US. Be safe. And I look forward to speaking with you again. Take care. Bye.